Welcome to another edition of What You Need to Know, a Canadian Policast by Blue Sky Strategy Group. Hi everyone, how are you today?
Good morning,
Good.
Morning.
Hi, so we've brought together everyone here to talk about budget. I'm Alyson, Fair Consultant here at Blue Sky Strategy Group, and I'm joined by my colleagues Susan Smith and Neil Brodie and Andrew Leslie. So budget 2021, we finally got a budget, and first of all, I want to know, did everyone actually read it?
I read most of it.
Yes,
working my way through.
Making your way, okay. I have not, of course, I was busy putting together everything for the budget night, but Susan, what was your overall impression of the budget since you read most of it?
Well, it's 724 pages, Alyson, so I didn't read all the charts yet at the back, but I've been working my way through it, that's for sure. What was my impression of it? Well, there's a lot of spending, there's no question. We expected a lot of spending out of the budget, but with a lot of spending comes a lot of opportunity. The government it was 2 years since we've had a budget. We know that the government was supposed to do a budget last March, and guess what? COVID hit. So they delayed for a year. We thought there might be something substantial in the fall. There was a fiscal economic statement, but then we hit wave 3 of COVID. So this budget really reflected wave 3, where we are in the health crisis, but also I think the government was trying to put together a roadmap for the country to come out of the health crisis. And what they wanted to do was build on what they've learned. So, you know, it was widely touted as the first feminist budget. We had our first federal finance minister ever, Chrystia Freeland, and an associate finance minister, Mona Fortier. Yep. So you see that lens in a lot of things in the government, in the budget, whether it's childcare, whether it's incentives for training, for companies to hire employees for training, or the overall lens that was put on it. The goal is to try and get as many people back into the workforce as possible. And obviously the government has a huge commitment to climate change. So in terms of trying to spur the economy with this $101.4 billion worth of spending, they put a green climate lens on it as well. So I think there's lots of opportunity for people. We'll be unpacking it and paying for it for a long time to come.
Yeah, that's true. I have to say I was really, really impressed with Freeland's presentation and everything. It's just hard to get used to. You know, you've had budgets, haven't had budgets for, a couple of years now. And to see her come so confident into this budget and to have it so jam-packed. I think it was very well done with all the stuff we're going through with COVID. Neil, do you think the budget gave you a sense of that it's a roadmap to getting out of this pandemic?
For sure. The budget, sometimes budgets are focused on long term, sometimes they're focused on the medium term, sometimes they're focused on the short term. And I think this budget has done a good job mapping out fiscal direction for the next 18 months to 2 years. A lot of the money in it is front loaded to the next 2 years. After that, it drops off a bit. But that's what I think for 80% of the commitments in there, that's good. You've got more money going into, as Susan said, skills and training and hiring credits. You've also got more money going into a strategic innovation fund, which will help businesses and further infrastructure.
Okay, so will it help businesses? Like, the strategic fund, will it really help businesses?
Well, for sure. That's what it's set aside for. It's set aside to fund innovations in whatever sector the government is looking to see innovation in. I think in the budget there was money for the aerospace industry. There was some money for life science and biomanufacturing. There's also money for just technological developments, and it's not small amounts of money. We're talking about $2 billion for one sector, $1 billion for another sector, $700 million for another sector. I mean, these are real incentives for business to get moving, developing things. And while they're developing things, they're also employing Canadians, which is what the economy needs for the next 2 years.
Did you agree, Andy?
Yes, in general. I like the simplicity of the three big ideas. One, conquer COVID, and I think the appropriate amount of resources has been dedicated to that effort. We can argue later about how well people did in this jurisdiction or at that level, but there's no doubt about it. Job one, conquer COVID. The argument, or the second big idea, was to sort of punch through, to use Minister Freeland's words, punch through the COVID recession. Actually, the economy is on the uptick as we speak. So you could once again debate whether or not either too many resources have been given or not enough. I'm sure that the vast majority of Canadian businesses would say not enough. So I think it's probably a suitable blend and mix dedicated to that effort. The next one is, of course, to build back better. And in that portfolio or that package, there's literally multiple hundreds of different categories, ranging from two really big and important ideas, in my opinion. That's childcare and further support to Indigenous. After that, it starts to look a little bit like boutique funding allocations, appealing to a variety of interest groups, all of which are important in the eyes of the beholder. But some of the coherence starts to slip a bit, and we'll see how good they are in executing this.
What's slipping?
Well, sort of the logic train behind some of them is not apparent in terms of building back better for the whole of society. So when you've got one or two big ideas, or 6 or 7 at the federal level, then it's probably easier to manage and administer than it is hundreds, if not thousands, of small programs, which in totality end up to several $100 billion.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the government, if they're topping up existing programs or how many new ones they're going to be creating. Neil talked about the Strategic Innovation Fund. This is a hugely important fund for business, both existing businesses and businesses that want to grow. This was a great vehicle for expanding manufacturing, expanding R&D, and converting what we know into a business. And I think the investment in that is good, and hopefully that means the money will get out the door really quickly. And I think, the government tried to, from my read of it anyway, they tried to look at the sectors that were hammered in the economy and the sectors that we need to be a more resilient country in case another pandemic happens again. It's not, I don't know that we might never, I think we could have another pandemic in our
I hope not.
So I think there's some resilience there. In terms, Neil talked about the biomanufacturing and so on. We need to make sure we can handle this again. But youth got hit hard, women got hit hard, small business got hit hard, and the government, I think, worked really hard in this budget to put measures in place where people could see themselves and see themselves included. There also, a big chunk of that spending was the $30 billion of that $101 billion is those income support programs that were put in place just for COVID. And that's how Canadians kept food on the table and businesses kept from folding, even though employees had to take pay cuts. That's a big chunk of that spending. That will wind its way down, hopefully, as the economy opens itself back up again. But that was spending that had to happen. I agree with Andy. There's a bit of boutiquerie going on, but that's where you get into, this is both a budget to govern on and a budget to run on.
Yeah, Brad, very good point.
Every budget has boutique stuff, but you're 100% right, Susan. This is a pre-election budget. If the government doesn't fall on this budget, which it won't, because the NDP under Jagmeet Singh have said they're going to support this budget, there'll be an election before another budget comes along, because I don't know how you could top this budget, quite frankly, next year and then go into an election. Everything that could possibly be in a budget is in this budget, for people from Nanaimo to Holyrood, Newfoundland.
Yeah, it's actually, I'd have to say, from my perspective, it's probably the first budget that I feel like I can relate to.
Oh, interesting.
And as coming from someone, we've all been working from home, we've all been, changing how we build our lifestyles and that, but I really felt I connected to this budget. And I'm not a political I like politics and all that, but I'm not a partisan person. And so for me, I think it hit home a lot in terms of dealing with me, my family, and the community I live in and the businesses that I have been supporting through this pandemic, and that we've been helping as a company get through as well, in terms of it. So it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out with the debates and all that. I know that it gets all political and all that stuff, but I think a lot of Canadians, I hope they're looking at this budget and going, yeah, I can see a lot of stuff here that can help me and get through this pandemic. And
well, if they don't, every Liberal MP will fan out across the country and tell you why this is a good budget.
That's true. That's true. Speaking about election, you guys brought that in. Fall election then?
I think so.
Sure.
Yeah. Andy?
I agree. I think if the Prime Minister were to call an election now with the increasing number of variants and deaths, that he would pay a huge political price, and I think it would be the wrong thing to do. So far.
And I don't think he's going to do it.
No, you can't do that well. Variants are running rampant in Liberal heartland. Downtown Toronto, downtown Vancouver, downtown Montreal, and the East Coast.
Yeah, I think that's off the table, though. I don't think there's any hint that there would be a federal election at this stage of the game. I do still think there'll be one in September once kids go back to school and parents can breathe a little bit. And you're right, Neil, they wouldn't want to have to try and top this budget. But I think in the interim, the Liberals, the government has good things to campaign on. Alyson's interesting. You're a non-partisan person, but you feel you've connected to the budget. There are people who have kids from a childcare age. That's interesting. People who have youth who are a bit older that maybe are looking for employment. People who have seniors in their family, and there's more money on the OAS side. People who believe that things need to happen from a climate change perspective. People who are innovators, right? I think there's opportunities there. There's homeowner retrofits to make the place greener, right? So let's hope we can see some of this stuff get implemented. I am a little bit concerned about the level of spending, but at the same time, from our perspective, from a Blue Sky Strategy Group perspective, which is always the hat I put on, I think there's huge opportunity for our clients in terms of looking at what their priorities are and aligning it and finding a way to tell the story from a government perspective. If you need $1, there's probably $1 there that we can help you find. If there's a clean lens or an Indigenous or an inclusive growth in terms of the hiring that you're doing and the broadening of your workforce, all of that's there, and that's not a bad thing to help the country do better. People got hurt in the pandemic. We really did, and obviously it's not 100% up to government to make changes, but governments are there to lead. And if we can do things like broaden the workforce, make sure our companies are more diverse, or there's more investment in life and biosciences so that we're inventing the next vaccine, and we're producing the next vaccine, or we're producing the next green or clean technology. That's a good way to spend our money in terms of trying to kickstart the economy again.
Yeah, I totally well said, Susan. I definitely think this is the phrase keeps going, build back better, and that's why we're talking about the broader scope of the budget. This has the chance to build this country back. No, Neil?
Well, build back, yes, better. I don't know how you quantify that, but definitely this is a good budget over the next 2 years to get us back to what we could consider a pre-pandemic economic engine in Canada.
Andy, you're the former whip. Do you think it'll pass?
I do. It'd be really tough to vote against this. Once again, because of the way in which it's crafted and the way in which it was presented. So 3 hard-hitting points at the beginning: to conquer COVID, punch our way through the COVID recession, and build back better. And then within the focus within the build back better portion is daycare. Now, who can logically argue against that? Who can argue against green, which is another enormous portion of the resource allocation increase? And who can really argue against Indigenous? So when you combine those sort of 3 broad themes and those 3 subsets, it makes for a readily communicable budget message to a host of people that would otherwise not be paying attention. And your point, by the way, Susan, about there's lots of resources being allocated by the federal government to a whole host of different industries or different interest groups. And people are going to need some help navigating the differences and the nuances at the federal level, and that's us.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to Andy's 3 points, as Meatloaf said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I figure green goes ahead, Indigenous goes ahead, but I don't think people should pin hopes necessarily on childcare. Previous Liberal minority government tried to do that. Ken Dryden, who people say did a fantastic job working on it, took 2 years and it never amounted to anything. It's dependent on the provinces, and the provinces have a $28 billion hole in healthcare that they came to Ottawa with a little over a month ago. So I wish people the best, but if they get the rest of the budget rolled out, I think that's absolutely fantastic. Childcare is a great dream, but I don't think we'll see it in this government's lifetime.
Interesting.
I think they're going to do it.
I have to agree. I think they're going to do it too. I think they've got a lot of provincial backing based on what's happening in the different provinces already with it coming to childcare. So we'll see. We'll see. So climate, childcare, COVID, that was the budget. Great talk, guys. Thank you. And I appreciate you joining me today. And thank you to the viewers for tuning into What You Need to Know, a Canadian Policast. Until next time, stay safe, guys. And we'll chat with you guys again soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Blue Sky Strategy Group is one of Canada's leading public affairs firms. For government relations, lobbying, and strategic communications advice across Canada, visit us at blueskystrategygroup.com. Blue Sky Strategy Group is a proud member of the Global Communications Alliance.